Hey there, I'm Nicole Lewis-Keeber, and I am the author of How to Live Your Business. And you are joining the author read along where I read my book to you. We have gone through chapters 1 through 2, and we've done the first three exercises together. And we're going to jump into chapter 3 today. Hopefully, you have your book you can read along. If not, just settle in, get something to drink maybe, and uh, pen and paper to take some notes if that feels important to you. I do want to just give a real quick content warning regarding chapter 3. There is some discussion about childhood abuse. It is not super graphic, but I always just like to let people have a heads up about the content that could be coming up. So here we go, chapter 3. Oh, where have you felt this way before? My relationship with my mother was the first of many complex and abusive relationships that I fell prey to in childhood. And then later, of course, unwittingly and recreated as an adult. When I realized that I was using my business as a tool to abuse myself, I used some basic inquiries to identify who my business had become to me. First, I asked myself, where have I felt this way before? At work, I felt like I could do nothing right. This was all in my head, mind you. I never had a client complain to me or criticize my work ethic at all. In my business, I felt like I could do nothing right. In my work, I felt like I could do nothing right. And nonetheless, I felt that every decision I made was the wrong one, and that I was letting everyone down because I couldn't make enough money to focus enough or give enough or be enough. I felt like a loser. Those were my clues. I recognized these feelings because I grew up in a family where I was the scapegoat. I could do no right by my mom. According to her, I was lazy, uncooperative, mean, and always in trouble. In her eyes, I was a bad kid. The majority of the abuse was verbal and emotional, but sometimes it would turn physical. There was no way to win at this game because my mom and family members were invested in me being wrong. This pattern went on to be recreated in my relationship with my teachers and counselors at school. I had an undiagnosed learning disability, so I processed information differently, still do. And I went from a household where I was labeled a problem child to a classroom where my inability to learn, do homework, and understand was also my fault. In school and at home, I believed that if I were better, smarter, stronger, nicer, or more compliant, then maybe I would be safe and seen for the smart, feisty child that I really was. This pattern played out in friendships, in romantic relationships, and even in the workplace. Because of my undiagnosed learning differences, which meant I processed information slower, I had difficulty concentrating. I began to see myself as bad. Somehow I was the problem that needed to be fixed. I needed to be more of something or less of something, better, smarter, more willing to sacrifice, etc. In effect, I handed my power over again and again in any attempt to try and make things better because I was always the problem that needed to be solved. Because this pattern was so familiar, it was very easy for me to fall back into it. My business had become a personification of my mother, and I handed over my power to the invisible they. Remember, we talked about that in chapter 2. My client Amanda grew up in a household where her mother was neglectful, bordering on abusive. She would tell Amanda, "You have a roof over your head, figure it out." So Amanda did. From the age of 6, she was expected to take care of her little sister, get both herself and her sister dressed and ready for school, and pack their lunches. Her father, who was in and out, was even less reliable than her mother. Amanda soon realized that through achievement at school, she could get attention, and by being productive, she could bring safety and security to herself and her sister. The sisters graduated from high school early and each had full rides to college, all while they had a mother who was emotionally and physically abusive. After college, Amanda created a career in recruiting where she was a high achiever. She was very polished, skilled, and sought after. Several years ago, she left her high-powered job to begin her own business because the corporate culture had become so toxic to her. When she was finally on her own and without structure and the scaffolding of achievement around her, there was one crucial thing missing. There was no boss or colleague to give her praise for her accomplishments. There was no one to say, "Hey, this report you did was fantastic," or "Hey, that talk you gave brought in a new client." As she began to build her own business, she was absolutely exhausting herself trying to get that feeling of safety again through achievement and productivity. At heart, she was still trying to please her mother, and she had created an abusive relationship with her business where she was recreating these toxic patterns of trying to overcome her mother's neglect and abuse. But of course, no matter the amount of money or clients could do that, they can't do it. And as a result, she never could feel safe. In our work together, I helped Amanda recognize, first of all, that the experience she had in childhood were actually trauma experiences. And I helped her see that she had overcome that trauma by creating these patterns of behavior that looked very productive and functional. But in actuality, those behaviors, which from the outside made her seem like a healthy, well-adjusted person, were keeping her stuck in these trauma adaptations and patterns. When she was able to see that she was, when she was able to see that, she was then able to change the relationship she had with her business from one where she felt satisfied, where she never felt satisfied or accomplished, to one where she would wake up in the morning and ask herself and her inner kiddo, what are we going to do today? She began to let some of those external ways of validating herself fall away, and she was able to build her business in a way that felt more comfortable. It turned out that Amanda is not a naturally high achiever. Her strengths are her creativity and her sensitivity. And with this insight, she was able to build a business that was more in line with who she genuinely is and have a relationship with it that was supportive instead of undermining. Recreate patterns that we grow up with because they feel familiar. We do it in our romantic relationships, our friendships, and in other environments like our businesses. I had another client tell me that she was afraid to confront her boss. Got distracted there for a minute. We'll start over. We don't edit, we don't do perfection here. I had another client tell me that she was afraid to confront her boss because he reminded her of her father. In every place in her life, she had found her voice, set up boundaries, and felt secure and satisfied. The exception was at her workplace. This boss triggered the childhood trauma she suffered at the hands of her father, and so she took the abuse, did not speak out against it, and tiptoed around him. She was letting him steal her power, and that made her angry at herself. But she was unsure of how to change this dynamic. And when you start a business, no one asks you, hey, what kind of relationship have you been in, and what was your role in them? Or what worked for you and what didn't? We've been taught to compartmentalize our lives, to drop our baggage at the door when we go into the office or start a business. And there's no room for emotions, vulnerability, or even mental health problems when it comes to the workplace. But that means that you end up only bringing a part of yourself to your business, not your whole messy, complicated, and fully human self. And what I'm trying to say is that if you will give more, what I'm trying to say is that you will get more out of your business if you integrate all parts of yourself. And those challenging relationships can motivate you to go into business, create high level skill sets, but the baggage that they carry can also make it impossible to achieve success. Apologize for the stumbling. Remember, learning disability, working on processing the information as I'm reading it. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are for this. We do have some exercises in the next video that will follow, and we'll jump into that next.